Well, hi, everyone. So glad that you're all joining us today. I hope that you're all staying safe and well. And I am super excited about today, Small Biz, Big Dreams. We've got some amazing, amazing women that are here to share their thoughts with you. But I want to say a few things about where we are today. And, you know, before COVID-19 hit, the beauty industry was valued at $532 billion and on a rapid trajectory. Now, however, in the midst of a global health crisis, experts predict that global beauty industry revenues could fall by as much as 20 to 30% in 2020. However, despite these discouraging stats, the beauty industry is very resilient. During the 2008 financial crisis, spending in the industry only fell slightly and fully bounced back within 2 years. So today, to dive into a discussion on the state of small business, but specifically the beauty industry and what the future holds for the category post-COVID-19, we tapped 4 powerhouse founders who are at the helm of the next generation brands and disrupting beauty and the wellness verticals. So without further ado, let's get into it. I want to welcome Shontay Lundy, founder of Black Girl Sunscreen. Hey, Chante. Tai Beauchamp, who's the co-founder and CEO of Brown Girl Jane. Hey, Tai.
Thank you. Hi, how are you? CBO.
I love that. Rochelle Graham Campbell, who's the CEO and founder of Alakay Naturals, and Africa Miranda, who's a beautypreneur, author, and host. So welcome to all of you, and thanks for taking time. So let's start with Shontay. Shontay, phenomenal company. After earning your graduate degree, you transitioned out of corporate America and founded the non-toxic personal care brand, Black Girl Sunscreen, filling a glaring gap in the skincare market and disrupting a very outdated industry. Can you talk us through the Black Girl Sunscreen business model and how you turned a personal wellness mission into a multi-million-dollar company?
Well, I will start off by saying that I don't know if it was intentional. I am a risk taker by nature. I've been taking risks since I was, 15 years old. The short version of it is just moving away from home to go to college, and then from college driving to a new state to do my master's, and then transitioning into corporate America, then transitioning out of corporate America, and then moving to the West Coast. So I lived in 3 major cities with actually no real plan. So therefore, removing myself out of old environments into new environments to allow myself to be creative and to experience different things, which then gave me the position to start to think about something like a Black Girl Sunscreen. Here living on the West Coast, there's a lot of creative juices flowing. There's a lot of entrepreneurship that's happening. And I am a woman of the sun, so I travel very often, and living in South Florida for 12 years, I was doing a lot of beaching. I was doing a lot of just outdoor activities, and transitioning to Los Angeles, it was the same thing, hiking a lot, and not necessarily taking pictures for Instagram, right? But hiking with purpose. And my friend would offer me a sunscreen that would leave a white cast. And I said, hey, you see my complexion. I am of darker skin. This does not work for me. It doesn't make me feel good nor look good. And a cosmetic product is the opposite of that. It's supposed to make you feel good and look good. So then my next question was, can I do something about that? Once I figured out that I could do something about it, I actually did something about it. And that was gathering my resources and asking myself, hey, Chante, do you think you're the only brown girl that's looking for a sunscreen that rubs in completely clear? So we fast forward today, and our business model is really our mission and vision, and that's to get Black Girl Sunscreen in the hands of all brown and Black girls to experience something that they might not have experienced before. there is a myth that Black people don't need sunscreen. And we're here to bust that myth. We're here to educate the preventative measures on why sun safety is important for the cosmetic reasons and for the health reasons. So that's really just kind of like the short version of Black Girl Sunscreen's business model.
I mean, I love that. I love that it came out of a time when you were moving around. It came out of a time when you yourself felt the need. I think that's awesome, and what a great brand you've built. So Ty, let's move to you for a minute. So before you became the wellness entrepreneur you are today, you built a very impressive resume in publishing, including stints at Harper's Bazaar, the Oprah Magazine, and 17, where you were actually made history as the magazine's youngest and first African-American beauty and fitness director. Like, that's a major wow. How did you know it was time to strike out on your own? And also, what advice do you have for people who want to take the leap to start their own business, but quite frankly are worried about the financial risk?
Wow, great question. First and foremost, thank you so much, Ginger, for having me and to Create and Cultivate and the entire team. And it's great to see our wonderful group of panelists, some of whom I know more intimately and others that I'm super excited and have been following your careers for some time, and excited to share this time and stage. I think, pivoting is never easy, right? But I think as Chante shared with even her journey, oftentimes it's just about recognizing a void in the market and an opportunity to kind of create impact. And I think it's always about leading with that. When I left publishing the first time in 2005, I believe, or 2005 when I left publishing, it was really as a result of burnout. I think when you talk about having this fast-paced and fast-track career as a beauty director, making history at 25 with this very high level and esteemed position, by the time I was 26, I was over it. And I was literally at this place of like, oh, that was great, this is fun, but I wanted to dig deeper and really understand my purpose in publishing, which was giving voice to young people and young women at the time. And when I left, I really didn't have a major plan. I think similar to Chante, but I think what is important about entrepreneurship is recognizing several things. Passion is not enough. Passion is not enough. I think passion is necessary. Passion helps to fuel the energy that you need to continue to go at times when you don't have perhaps the resources, the capacity, or the bandwidth. However, what should really, really, I think, inspire us both about entrepreneurship or any role, even if you're an entrepreneur within an organization, is really finding your purpose and being clear about what your intention and the opportunity to impact is. And so I say you do that first. Secondarily, then you find out what the void in the market is. What is a pain point for people, as Chante identified? Black women and melanated skin, there's a pain point for us at Brown Girl Jane. We recognize that wellness and supporting people and women of color, centering women of color specifically around their wellness, there's a void there, because when we speak to Black women and melanated skin tones and brown women about wellness, it's simple as, okay, go take a yoga class. Well, that's not enough. That's a piece of it, but what's in your toolkit and how do we support them on this journey? And so I've been an entrepreneur for 14 years, actually. And I will say time and time again, there was no business plan. There was no financial model at the time when I started Thai Life Media 14 years ago. But it was fueled by recognizing that there was a void in the market. I was passionate and purpose-led in helping people to tell stories. And it's the same thing now with Brown Girl Jane. My co-founders and I, 3 Black women, Malika and Nia, who are actually biological sisters, really felt fueled because, like Chante said, when I moved here to LA, I was in a rut. I was tired of being on a plane every single week. I was in the process of shooting a travel show, and while it looked glamorous, I wasn't getting any sleep. I felt anxious constantly about packing and unpacking, because it was literally moving at light speed. And when Malika and Nia came to me and shared what they were doing with Brown Girl Jane, it was a no-brainer because this was a pain point that I was feeling in my life. I wanted to be centered. I wanted to feel more whole in my wellness journey, both spiritually, internally, physically, and emotionally. We are intended and focused on helping women of color and Black women have the resources that they need, both as a community. We're very community centric in doing so. So I think if, you know, the advice I give to young people who are looking to start a business, or anyone, is be very clear about your purpose, your mission. I say that individually, the same way that a business has a manifesto and a mission statement, you should have your own personal mission statement, you should have your own personal manifesto, and then align that as you're looking at opportunities in the market to build.
Tai, you know, something you said, I love what you said about passion not being enough, because, you know, I talk a lot about that when I speak, and we know that passion's important, but there was a great book written called The E-Myth, and it's about the fact that most entrepreneurs start with a passion, but you have to bring in the other stuff that's not quite as much fun to make that passion become a reality. So I love what you said. It's fantastic. So Rochelle, moving to you, in 2008, you paved the way as one of the first natural hair vloggers and quickly amassed a huge following on YouTube. Fast forward to 2020, and you've turned those followers into dollars with your line of sought after natural hair care products. Just amazing. How did you cultivate a community into a thriving business without losing your followers' hard-earned trust in the process? And then what advice can you share for aspiring entrepreneurs who want to leverage their platforms that they currently have to sell products authentically?
Okay, sure. So again, first of all, thank you for having me. This is an amazing conversation. So I would say for me, everything that happened with the start of my career with YouTube and becoming a natural hair vlogger, as I've always mentioned before, I was on my way to law school, and I decided to not go to law school and instead just continue to pursue this side hustle passion that my husband and I were doing while in college. So I think for me, my journey through entrepreneurship officially is 11 years, and it's just really been organic. And I think one of the amazing things with my audience, with my YouTube subscribers, first thing, it's even the way you speak about your audience or what you call them is something that's really important. I've never really felt comfortable saying my fans. I don't say that. I'm like, those are my subbies. Those are my like online sisters, because that for me was what it was during that time. It was me learning things about my natural hair, learning to be more confident, educating myself about the harsh chemicals that are in beauty products, and then sharing it with my online community, my sisterhood. And so it never really felt like a business transaction. It just really felt like, hey girl, I learned this thing. It's important for us to know this. Let's talk about it. And I think that's one of the ways that it really did not come across as like a sleazy sales tactic, because my audience really went and grew with me from me having nothing to sell and doing my first 400 videos on YouTube for free. So again, YouTube and Google and stuff was not paying. So really, I did this out of just my love and the want and to be able to serve like my community. And so them watching me go from being a newly married 21-year-old in my 2-bedroom apartment, in college, just going back and forth between my 50 million jobs and talking about that process to, hey guys, by the way, started making some jewelry on the side, and my audience bought it because they thought it was cute. And then it was my community and my YouTube subbies that actually said to me, hey, you need to make your growth oil into a business, because that was not my intention at all. I made my first Essential 17 hair growth oil with Alakay for myself. And what a lot of people actually don't know is that once people started to see my hair growing with my growth oil, I was like, hey guys, I don't have the money or the time to make this for you, but I'll do a tutorial showing you how to do it. So I recorded a YouTube video showing people my formula and said, hey, this is how you mix it. This is what you do. And they're like, no, like we want you to make it for us. And so just having that, I feel like my audience, my subbies, my online sisters are really who inspired me to start my brand in the first place. And they pushed me into it because they were like, hey, we want it and you need to make it happen. And I'm really happy that I've always had the mindset of serving others and thinking about, if I have something, it's nothing I want to make sure I keep to myself. I feel like it's my duty, like each one teach one. And so that, you know, beautifully was able to spark my career and really start the Allocate Naturals brand. So I think once you remain authentic with your audience and once you take them along the journey with you, I believe that it builds a loyalty that really cannot be broken, because fast forward now, 11 years later, the same customers who were buying Allocate Naturals when I was in my apartment with my little wash away Avery labels are the ones that are telling their friends and their family to go into Target or to Walmart to buy our products on shelf. Because and also customers will send us pictures. So Allocate Nation is what we call our customers. So again, same thing. It's not just my customers. So Allocate Nation, they'll send selfies or videos crying when they first see Allocate on shelf, just like I did, because they were a part of it. They saw this business baby of mine, you know, grow, and they feel emotionally invested in it. And also because I've been really authentic and forthcoming with all the stages that I've gone through in business. I've never, you know, put up a beautiful screen to make it look like everything is perfect from beginning to end. I've shared my wins. I've shared my pitfalls. We've cried together. You know, we've celebrated together. So it's a we. It really is a community. So I think if you are a business owner or a brand owner, you have to figure out if you want the responsibility of a community, because on the other side of things, when you do have a community, as far as instead of it just being your customers, you owe them more. You know what I mean? Because you have more of a social responsibility to them. You have more of a responsibility to make sure that the actions that your brand, you know, is taking is not just a reflection of your own beliefs, but also the beliefs of the community and your online or customers that are your family as well. So I think just remaining authentic is one of the things that has really, you know, set me apart. I've never tried to fit into a mold, and I've never tried to have my customers fit into a mold. I think, am really involved in communication even to this day with my customers. A lot of people have literally freak out moments when they realize that I hop in to like Facebook Messenger and I answer one of their questions. And yes, I have a customer service team. And yes, I have an executive assistant, and I have all these people on my team that can answer these things. But hearing my customer express a concern, or hearing someone say, hey, I'm struggling with my hair, and me jumping in myself, like that fuels me. And so having that connection to me is still extremely important, even as we're scaling the brand to the level that we have globally.
I love that, because what you've done with your personal authenticity is your followers have come with you versus you having to find followers. And I just think that's fantastic. Thank you. Just amazing.
Thank you.
So Africa, it's safe to say that skincare is one of the most disruptive and competitive markets. In fact, it's actually projected to generate a staggering $189 billion globally by 2025. Wow, it's a big number. So we have to know, how did you find your brand's white space in such a saturated market? And what differentiates Beauty by Africa Miranda from its competitors? And then kind of what advice can you share for founders who are looking to launch a skincare brand in 2020?
Well, I'm like, great question. I'll touch on all the points. First, my background as, you know, a commercial model and actress, I think uniquely positioned me to really understand what it took to tell a story of a product, because I was literally like the physical person doing that for so many brands. And, you know, then as it kind of transferred into like becoming an influencer or, you know, digital creative, I realized, oh, I'm still doing in many ways what I was doing as a model or an actress for other brands. And when I was approached by, you know, other people in the industry saying, you know, when are you going to do something for yourself? I was like, well, I don't know anything about it. And everybody's like, you've been in meetings, you've been in emails, you've been on sets, all of that. You know, I was getting all of this education. And as I call it now, looking back, like that was my grad school. Like that was me getting my MBA in, so to speak, by, you know, having that like hands-on experience. So I realized I know what it takes to put together a multi-million-dollar campaign, because I've been the face of one. Ones have been built around me from head to toe. And when I really kind of sat back and started looking through everything that I've been a part of, I got a little bit more faith in what I knew, because I think that's the first thing as an entrepreneur, and especially I think as a woman and even as a Black woman, we don't initially, I think, trust what it is that we know. about what it, what is it we're creating, what we're doing. And sometimes maybe it's because it's too easy for us, or it just, I don't think we're groomed to believe in ourselves like out of the gate. So the first piece for me was just one, recognizing that I had a lot more knowledge about the beauty industry than I thought I did. And when it came to skincare, I just looked at, what did I love? Like, I looked at also what did I feel like was missing from brands. And similar to what, Ty was saying about Brown Girl Jane, when I looked at skincare and like beautiful products and packaging, I realized that while products wouldn't say that they were specifically like targeting like other races of women, I realized that everything for Black women, the packaging was like plastic, brown, orange, like it didn't look pretty. Like I liked, I looked at also what I love. Like I love perfumes and I love fragrances. I like to like sit my products and things like I like to have shelfies and sit things out. But I realized that the products for us did not feel special. And anytime that I touch my body or I'm putting something on my body, I feel like that's a moment to honor myself. And I wanted to create products that, one, made women, especially Black women, stop and take a moment. And like take a moment, and you're not just like slapping products on your face and rubbing it in and heading out the door. You're, the whole experience of opening the box to getting the bottle and putting it out, like everything, it was thoughtful. So that was really the inspiration from just the packaging and the, the aesthetic detail. But even when it came time to really just look at what was the story of my brand, because again, now how do we differentiate Beauty by Africa Miranda from every other like facial oil and beauty products and things that are on the shelves? I again just went back to what has worked for me in my life and in my career, which is I've been able to connect because I tell my story. I tell my audience what I love. I tell people what I'm passionate about, what I'm going through. And, I looked at what had been really transformational for me in my life over the last probably 7 to 10 years, and that had been travel. And what do I do when I travel? I go to the spa. I'm like, getting lost in little like neighborhoods and villages. I'm finding out beauty products. Like I've been in Rio and found the weave store. Like that's what I do when I travel. No, literally, like we were broken Portuguese, but they were showing me how they do the thread. It was amazing. But I looked at it and I was like, okay, that's my life. That's what I do. So I love traveling. I wanted things that inspired women, to travel, but I also wanted to capture that feeling like when you're on a beach or you're somewhere special, it's like, how can I bottle this and bring it home? And it's like, that's what I did with each of my products. So that was the story. Each product is inspired by a specific destination. And when you use it, it has ingredients that are from each place, but it also is going to inspire you from the smell, the texture, the experience of applying it to recreate that sensation of being in that place. My Luminous Body Mist is inspired by how I felt being in the south of France. And when you smell it and you put it on, like it is that luxurious moment that I had in Nice, that I had in Cannes. The facial elixir brings you right back to when I was on the beach in Ipanema in Brazil and like, the glow. In my most recent Curacao, I was blessed to host a travel show pilot there. I learned everything about the island. I got obsessed. I wanted something fresh that had the aloe vera. And that, is how the Hydra Essence Complexion Mist was born. So for me, it was just, okay, how can I tell my own story, but also do it in a way that's unique, but not feel like I'm trying to chase behind, a large, multi-million-dollar company. I'm not trying at this stage of my brand or my business to replace everything in your skincare cabinet. But what I can do is tell you these are special items that you don't have. They're going to give you a little something extra that you can mix in with your favorite toner and favorite cleanser to give you the Africa Miranda experience. So that is what has, I think, been the saving grace for my products and for me. And what I would challenge any entrepreneur that is looking and saying, well, there's already 10,000 products. And there are, like, I'm not going to sit here and say that I've created something that does not exist. But what I can say is that you are going to create something with your story and your approach that does not exist. And there will always be a space for that if you stay true to that.
I mean, I love that. Someone told me a long time ago that every time you travel, you should buy a piece of art so that when you come home,
which I do, yes.
And I just love the connection there. I think that's really, it's amazing. Thank you. Chante, in just 4 years, you've scaled Black Girls Sunscreen into a multi-million-dollar company with products sold at over 200 Target locations across the country. Not to mention, you recently went international and are now selling products in Nigeria as well. By the way, congratulations on that. What's been the biggest challenge in scaling so quickly, and what do you wish you'd known about scaling a business before you launched it? And we just love for you to share all your learnings with us.
I don't wish I learned anything prior to going through the process and being on this entrepreneur journey. Respecting the process is a big part of it. And if you don't respect the process, then being an entrepreneur might not be for you. So as I continue to scale It's more about, you know, logistics, like how much things will cost in totality, you know, what are the timelines for raws, for you know, getting a product from overseas to the manufacturer. If the manufacturer is really giving you transparency on his timelines. And then, you know, I think that sometimes people say, you know, I was tired of working for someone in corporate America, but even when you transition out, you still have to communicate with partners. So whoever you're doing business with, any big box retailer, there's someone that you still have to provide updates to. You are still conversing about what's happening in your business. So the scaling part has been really exciting. You know, during, so in the beginning of March, I was actually in South Africa when the pandemic broke out here in the United States, and, you know, foreigners weren't allowed to fly in. I was in South Africa pitching Black Girl sunscreen to retailers in that space. So I had to make a decision if I was going to stop what I was doing to come home or not. The meetings got canceled, but I decided to stay because I thought it was actually calmer in South Africa than it was in the United States, just because of all the graphics and the social media that I was seeing. So, you know, when we go back to the scaling part, it's not just, you know, here in the States, but it's, you know, our mission and vision is for all brown and Black girls to have the product. And that's what we were literally doing, is trying to get another market to bust this myth about, oh, our ancestors never wore sunscreen, but our ancestors, and I'm in the motherlands now, are saying that, hey, we want your sunscreen.
I love that. And I love, you know, how your passion for this comes through. I'm so glad you're safe, by the way, that you stayed in South Africa for a bit, but fantastic advice. Thank you so much. So Tai, the CBD market is truly exploding. Experts predict that sales will reach $20 billion by 2024. But it's still a tricky time for entrepreneurs in the space. State laws are evolving, financial services are scarce, and advertising platforms, you know, continue to impose their own marketing restrictions. So I'd love to hear from you about what challenges have you faced in launching a brand around a somewhat stigmatized subject, and how has it impacted the growth of Brown Girl Jane, both positively and negatively?
Oh, thank you for that question, Ginger. Well, I first must say, I mean, all that you noted about the CBD industry is absolutely true. It is an industry in a space that is growing, I mean, rapidly, because there's a great deal of intrigue on it and around it. Definitely regulations are not necessarily as clear. So it is in some ways, you know, I like to say that, you know, you look at the CBD industry or even the cannabis industry as a whole, and if you put it in perspective to think about what prohibition was like, right? So this is really the frontier. This is almost the wild, wild west in some ways. But with that, if you think about what prohibition did and how it opened up the wine and spirits industry, there is amazing opportunity here. I will say that, you know, the one area where we have had Brown Girl Jane has had, you know, some of the challenges would definitely be in the advertising space, especially on, you know, various platforms and social and digital platforms, because, you know, they're not quite sure how to regulate it and how it's regulated. Meanwhile, just in understanding what CBD is also an amazing opportunity that we have, which is why we came into this space, why we entered the space as 3 Black women founders centering other Black and brown women. We recognize that there's a major opportunity to educate our community. And I loved what you said earlier, Rochelle. We call our community our tribe. They are not our customers, they are our tribe. And we center them in that way. And, you know, when you think about being a Black owned business focused on centering Black and brown women, you know, there are so many stigmas that exist within our community around CBD. And there's a lot of lack of knowledge and education, not to mention when you think about cannabis as a whole, and CBD is the non-habit forming, no high part of the plant, right? So it actually does none of those things. It just works with our endocannabinoid system to support wellness, to mitigate anxiety, to help you sleep and what have you. But we see this as as I said earlier, our purpose. And we like to say that your wholeness is our passion and our purpose. And we like to say wholeness instead of wellness, because as women of color, wholeness is to wellness what womanist is to feminist. So we recognize what it means to be a Black woman and a woman of color who is seeking wellness. But for us, we see it as an amazing opportunity. One, to engage with our community, to be a part of the solution in terms of supporting them on their wholeness journey and their wellness journey, and also doing critical work in social impact. A part of our business model is that a portion of all of our proceeds go to support nonprofit and for-purpose organizations that center women of color around their mental health and wellness, as well as supporting what is the overcriminalization of Black and brown people who have unfortunately been incarcerated because of cannabis and marijuana in the community. So it's an amazing opportunity for us. And while there are some challenges, we're hugely optimistic because our community, our tribe of people who support Brown Girl Jane are being really responsive. We have a balance serum that is helping during this time of uncertainty and anxiety to help soothe that and assuage what those concerns are. If you're not able to sleep, we have our sleep tincture that supports you getting rest. And so the only area I would say that we've experienced some challenge is really around the ads, and we're also self-funded. So at this time, we're not seeking funding, but really being intentional about growing our business as of self-funded entrepreneurs.
No, I love that. And just the fact that you've created a very holistic approach. It's not just about the CBD, but it's a holistic approach, which I think is fantastic. Thank you. So moving into some other questions, Africa. So starting a business takes capital, and there's one important question that every founder needs to ask themselves. Do I bootstrap or do I raise? So what did you do? Did you bootstrap? Did you do a friends and family round, or did you raise seed money? And then what financial path would you recommend for aspiring entrepreneurs?
I was very fortunate, when I was, really thinking about like how to get started and what that would look like and the cost and all of that. You have these great ideas, and then you start putting pen to paper, you're like, oh, maybe I don't. But I was very fortunate that, my mother was very supportive of, she always has been, of everything that I've wanted to do and all these, adventures that her daughter takes in her life. But when it was time to do this, I was really kind of on the fence if I was going to pull the trigger, use my savings, or just what I was going to do. And she gave me a gift to get started. And, I was like, no, it's a loan. And she said, no, it's not a loan. She was like, this is what, parents should do for their children. She was like, if I can do this to support you and help you, I'm going to do that. And it allowed me to get started. Now, and it's, realistically speaking, it wasn't like, I didn't have the Donald Trump, like a small loan of like, $1 million. It was by no means that, but it was enough that I could, take this idea and make it a reality and get started. So that was a blessing for me. I have not, from that point on, the business has been like essentially paying for itself. I am at a place, going into, this was supposed to be the year where I was like, I'm really going to buckle down and, start working on growing things, because I think what had really happened with me was that as an entrepreneur, and I found in talking in my circles, is that a lot of us started businesses, and we found out maybe 6 months to a year, 2 years in, there's a big difference in starting a business and actually running a business. And I am definitely like, in that phase of like, oh, okay, I have a business, but like now let's really learn how to like really run a business. And I would say before, and because what I realized was that, no, you can't, like, I can't justify someone giving me money or asking for funding or asking for all of these things if you can't really show where those dollars would go, what they would be used for, and if you could, really execute these things that you need, or do you even know what you need if you were to get that funding. So I would challenge, anyone, utilize your network. There may be someone first in your circle of family and friends that has been watching your journey that might be very willing to either give you a small loan or a small gift to help you get started. And don't discount that, because I think we think that we need sometimes $10,000 or $100,000 to get started, but we don't. Sometimes $1,000 or $500 can be the difference in an idea and actually starting a business. So I would just say be open to non-traditional sources of support.
No, I think that's great. And I think that, you know, having come from the banking industry, you're right. And I think everyone has to decide the best approach for them. And it doesn't have to be all or nothing.
Right.
A lot of really successful entrepreneurs look at a couple different approaches at any time. So thank you. I think that's great. You know, I wanted to ask another question to Rochelle. Rochelle, in funding your business, you decided against venture capital, and then you went the self-funded route. In an interview with Forbes, you revealed that you started your now multi-million-dollar business, this was amazing, with just $100 from your savings, which is like so amazingly impressive. Talk us through your bootstrapping process. Why did you self-fund, and would you recommend that path to other entrepreneurs?
Okay, sure thing. So yes, I really did start with $100. A lot of people think that it's just like a buzzword, you know, or a buzz statement, but that's all I had. I remember, again, creating my first product for Allocate Naturals, the Essential 17 Hair Growth Oil, using it on myself. My subbies are like, hey girl, we need this product. So of course I'm excited. I go to my husband and I'm like, babe, I need to make some more oils to put up on Etsy because my subbies want it. And he's like, well, we have rent due and we have light bill due next week. So as long as you can come up with the money somewhere else, then it's all good. So I literally called my friend Tiffany, and to this day, we still laugh about it. She's like, Allocate started because I gave you my shift. So, but I took her shift at Olive Garden and I got $100 in tips, and that's what I used to buy a couple extra bottles. I couldn't afford real labels, so I bought Avery labels from Staples, and I used some of the leftover ingredients that I had and bought a couple of extra oils, and that was literally the beginning of Allocate Naturals. So that's how I utilized that $100. I think what is important for people to understand about my story is that I did not overthink the process, and I also didn't focus on my launch needing to go the perfect or traditional route. I just went for it. I was like, well, you know what? Let me create this product. Let me throw it out there. I love it. It works for me. If it works for them, then great. And I'll develop it as I go. And that really has been my husband, Damon, and I's strategy over the past 11 years. One thing that I think made us, you know, decide to really stay the self-funded route as long as we have, we did get an offer for a couple $1 million buyout at year 4, which was absolutely crazy because we were like, we're still brand new. We literally just moved out of our house. This should not be happening as yet. But we looked at the valuation that they had for our business, and I'm like, well, babe, like if we're at year 4 and this is what this larger beauty brand is valuing us at, imagine if we just stick to it. And so my husband and I decided to just put our heads down and just keep building, just keep going. And both of us are Jamaican. We're born in Jamaica. So we grew up with not a lot of money. So we know how to make a lot out of not much. And so we literally, just because we didn't have that experience, you know, we didn't work in corporate, we have never worked in another business. So we didn't have that knowledge to really say, okay, well, hey, you could just, you know, go and get funding, or you can go and get investors. We thought this was our only option other than getting a bank loan. And banks, you know, unfortunately, the reality of it, they're not throwing money at Black-owned businesses. It's just not going to happen. So even if you have the revenue to back up, you know, you wanting to take a small loan, you're usually going to be denied. And so we decided that instead of focusing on what we couldn't have, let's focus on what we were making and just make sure that we manage our business finances just as strictly as we do our personal finances. And so while we saw a lot of new competitors, you know, emerging in our space throughout the past 11 years, and, you know, being able to do things on a much, much larger, you know, big bang scale than we could afford, we had to just remind ourselves that, listen, our strategy is different, and we are making sure that for every dollar that we spend, we have an ROI. And so it's not just like, hey, I'm going to book this influencer and pay her which is kind of interesting because I'm also an influencer. And I'm booked by other brands, so I see how it goes on both sides. But I'm not paying an influencer $10,000 just because she has cute hair and did a video for a competitor and they paid her $10,000. It's like, hey, well, I need to see your metrics. I need to see like what the ROI was. I need to see your analytics, because every dollar I spend, I need it back because it's coming from us. Yeah. And so that has really been I think what's kept Damon and I is just, again, not really focused too much on what the competitors are doing, and also not apologizing for that either. Because there was a time, I think around year 7 or 8, again, our industry is, you know, booming. And so everyone is like, well, hey, well, so-and-so brand is doing this, and so-and-so brand gave us $25,000 to sponsor, you know, a meetup with 100 people. And I'm like, I'm sorry, those numbers don't make sense to us. And so we focused on what we could do to still get the results and still get the exposure or the revenue growth that we needed within our brand. So that's really been our strategy, and that's how we've been able to do it. Another thing that I think was important for my husband and I as well was when we first landed our first retail account, which was Target. We had just moved into our first commercial space 2 years before. And so the Target opportunity, again, came a lot earlier, you know, in our journey than we expected. And we had to make a decision that day in the meeting, like, okay, are we going to, at this point, finally take funding so that we're able to outsource our manufacturing and really go on a larger scale to keep up with the numbers that we know we had to do to keep products in stock? Or were we going to open our own formal manufacturing facility? And at that time, I literally was rattling my brain. I reached out to a couple of larger brands within my niche to even say, hey, like, we've never done this, but of course, you know, sometimes it's tricky because there's only so much information that people can give. So we got none. So we just buckled down and figured it out. So we built our own manufacturing facility. So right now, our products are made from scratch here in Florida. And we were like, hey, well, we need our first production line. Let's figure out where to get it. What does this look like? And then there goes those big questions, because when you're put in a position where you're self-funded and you now have to buy a machine line for $300,000 cash, because that's all you have to do, then there goes that self-funded strategy again. So it's like, okay, here's what we need to do. We set the goal and we just started working on it. So just, again, the things that we have accomplished has probably taken a lot more time than a lot of people, you know, along the same path that may have had the ability or had access to funding, but we realize that our path is our own and our journey is our own. And we're just, just staying focused. So I think if anyone is considering starting a business and self-funding, you know, understanding your cash flow management is something that is extremely important. I would say as early as you possibly can, hiring an accountant or a CFO or someone that's able to really just help you to manage your finances. We didn't do that until, you know, years in, because we, again, just didn't know better. But I think that that would have even helped us a lot in the beginning. And I also think that when you're self-funded, you have to make sure that your margins are where they need to be. That is something that's extremely important. And I also think that as Black business owners, especially in the product space, we tend to price our products way too low. Like, we don't price our products where they really need to be based on value, because we're typically looking at our brands within a smaller niche and thinking, well, our customers are not going to pay that because brand A, B, and C is priced, you know, here. But you really have to take an accountability, you know, your pricing model and making sure your margins are there, because it's the only way that you're going to be able to support your brand. So with all that being said, that's literally why just probably 2 weeks ago, I just launched my first online business course that's called How to Create a Product That Sells, because I made a lot of mistakes along the way over the past 11 years, because no one told me a lot of these things that I think are pretty much basic information that you need to know when you're starting a product-based business, especially if you plan to scale it, whether it's into retail or scaling it to sell internationally, because we're sold in 26 countries. And for every single country, we had to figure out the process. And so now I'm in that same YouTube space where I used to teach people how to do their hair and say, hey guys, I learned this, let me teach you. It's the same thing now with the business. I'm like, hey guys, I've learned this, let me pass that knowledge on to you too.
And I love that. And what I heard from you is it's about flexibility. Like, even if you're down one path, there might be a change where you'd have to zig or zag a little. So we're getting close to our time, so I'm going to try to compress and move around some of our topics. But I do want to ask a couple questions on COVID. It's the elephant in the room, so to speak. So Tai, in the midst of COVID, prices are falling on marketing channels ranging from billboards to Facebook ads, and creating new opportunities for brands who are really looking to get a bigger bang for their advertising buck. How have you approached marketing and messaging on social to resonate with consumers, but also sell products and keep the business alive during COVID-19? And I know this is a question that a lot of entrepreneurs have today.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Well, I think, Brown Girl Jane is poised in a very unique way in this space. And I shared earlier, which has been really great to hear my fellow panelists also share, that at the center of Brown Girl Jane really is community. And during a time of COVID, as a wellness brand and a wholeness brand that centers women of color, people are really interested in finding out more about how to feel at ease, how to feel confident, how to feel comfortable. And so recognizing that our tribe needs this, we have been very intentional about centering them in conversations and in storytelling. So one of the things that we do twice weekly is we have a live IG show called You Good Sis, where we literally check in on our tribe and have conversations with tribe members that are either near and dear to the brand or that we're getting to know, as a way to just say, how are you? What's going on in your life? What are you up to? How is business? All of the things. And what we have found as a marketing strategy, obviously, that engaging community in this way is a way for them to latch on to the purpose and the mission of Brown Girl Jane. And then second to that, and ancillary to that, but obviously very much central to us, is how do we support them in their wellness and wholeness journey? And our toolkit provides that. Additionally, during COVID, and I think also on the heels of responding to Black Lives Matter and the movement that is very near and dear to us, we also started the Brown Girl Swap. And the Brown Girl Swap was really a way to provide insights and intel about what's happening in Black-owned businesses during this time, and also to highlight our fellow entrepreneurs like those who are here, saying that if we're going to be a part of the solution to really close the racial wealth divide that exists, here's a way that everyone can participate, both allies, advocates, and people within the community, and saying, here are 5 products in the beauty and wellness space. If you're using a mass retailer in this, or a mass brand in this way, consider these Black-owned businesses and support. So we have really kind of taken the opportunity that exists within our community, looking at their needs and figuring out ways that we can support them. And that's been our ultimate market and brand strategy during this time. That is working quite well for us. And fortunately, press and media are responding as well.
That's great. So one more question on COVID, and I think that what you've just responded to on this is fantastic, because social media is so critical. One of the reasons social media is so critical is just this whole focus on e-commerce. And so Rochelle, just a really quick question. At the height of quarantine, e-commerce sales were up 74%, even as brick and mortar retail locations reopen. Experts are predicting the shift to e-com may be permanent. Your products are stocked at big name retailers like Target and Walmart and CVS nationwide, but how have you shifted your e-commerce business in response to COVID? And I know one thing we're doing at Mastercard is we've just launched something called Digital Doors, which is actually to help small businesses get online and provide them with the training that they need. So would love to get your perspective on how your business has shifted. And then we're going to move into some really fun rapid fire questions.
Sure thing, of course. So yes, one of the things that happened quite interestingly for us, and I guess like you said, a lot of people, is that boom in e-commerce. I believe we had a growth of 120%, which was mind-blowing. It was like, wait a minute, we just did online revenue in 1 month that we typically did in the quarter the year before. So while that sounds fantastic, on the other side of things, of course, there was a slight dip in retail, but not in all of our retail accounts. The ones who quickly, switched to curbside pickup, or really pushing their drive-up services, or really innovating to stay ahead, we definitely were fine. We had stable sales there, but the ones that didn't, who just stuck to their old model, there was a decline across our entire category. And I have a close relationship with a few other brand owners that are within our niche, and we talk numbers, and it's like, hey, are you seeing a dip in the past 2 weeks with this retailer? And realizing that it was more of the retailer and less of the industry impact. And so I think the focus for us for Allocate has always been strategically, even though we were expanding into so many retail partnerships, we always kept our e-commerce very strong, very healthy. It's still a big part of our marketing strategy. I think a mistake that, at least in my opinion, that a lot of product-owned businesses make is they focus more on the retail channels and then they neglect their e-commerce. Your e-commerce is your direct connection to your people, and to your customers and to your tribe. And so you have to make sure that you're still nurturing that, because retail can disappear at any time. I mean, we've seen companies or retail stores that go bankrupt, and some of them never come back. And if your model is solely built on brick and mortar, then you're putting too much weight on that, and your business can sink when one account sinks. And so we've never wanted to have that. So we've always kept our revenue model very healthy and very diverse in that way. But we also have found that this is the perfect opportunity to just ramp up Facebook advertising or online advertising. As you guys have said, we're now doubling our advertising budget just because we're seeing such high returns. And also it's a great time to innovate. Like with e-commerce, the fun part is, you can release new products, you can launch new initiatives rather quickly, where with your retail, you have to go through this entire process. And especially now with the uncertainty in retailers as well, a couple of retail stores are now, notifying us that they're going to have surcharges that are now being added to receipts. So I know a lot of us are seeing that now with restaurants and in the restaurant industry, but it's now going to be trickling into the beauty space as well. And as a manufacturer, you have to prepare for that, because you don't know if that surcharge is going to mean a dip in sales in that channel. Right. So, but that's where we've been. And then packaging shortages are literally what is driving, I think, most of us crazy at this point in this space. Yeah. It's a headache. There's no packaging available anywhere, and we have 5 companies we purchase from. Yeah. I think that the beauty, though, that I have seen develop from this is the community of other CEOs that are in the beauty space. We've started selling each other packaging, behind the scenes, hey, I have, an excess of 2-ounce bottles and you have an excess of this. So again, still supporting each other behind the scenes has really helped to manage this growth.
No, that's great. And I saw everyone nod with the packaging problem. So clearly that's a big issue. So we only have literally just a couple of minutes. So I'd like to ask one question for all of you before we go to the rapid fire. So according to recent research, more diverse companies out-earn their industry peers by as much as 36%. As entrepreneurs, you're bringing diversity into the boardroom. How can other small businesses follow your lead and do better to ensure inclusivity is in both their marketing strategies and their staffing plans? What advice can you share? So why don't we start with Africa?
Well, my advice to small business owners, and it would be the same advice, I've been in similar conversations with, brands, because I work with them as an individual, is that you have to just start. A lot of this isn't rocket science. Adding other types of people or other types of conversations or other viewpoints is literally a matter of just doing it. So I would say if you're looking around your boardroom, you're looking at your next marketing campaign and it looks exactly like the same ones you've already done, then that's your answer. It's start there. So I think sometimes we almost even overcomplicate it. It's literally just hiring people, hiring more diverse staff, giving that to those staff that you then hire, the actual power to make decisions and be part of that process. But also, if you are creating messaging, making sure that messaging is literally diverse, meaning it looks different, it sounds different, it's including different types of people, and reaching different markets. So you just have to do something different than you've already been doing.
No, I love that. It's not think about it, just do it. I love it. Chante, your thoughts about that?
Yes, the name of my product is Black Girl Sunscreen, right? And we all know that sitting here on the panel. So that means that I had to take a risk just on the name and the product itself. So I had to clear out the minutia. So my advice to upcoming entrepreneurs that want to do better, I think that sometimes we get in our own headspace, and it is to follow your intuition and clear out the noise, and when that time is good for you.
No, that's great. So I'm going to go to some rapid fire questions. So my priceless money tip for small business owners is?
I'll start. Small business owners, I think the first hire is a bookkeeper and an accountant outside of your founding staff. And, know what you're spending. Be very intentional about it, even as you're building a business, because I think everyone thinks the more money you throw at it, the better. But I think developing that practice very early, bookkeeper, accountant, or CFO.
That's great. Chante?
Yeah, so I think that you should be very dangerous in every department. So know a little bit about a lot of things.
That's great.
Love that.
Rochelle?
Yes, I would say my tip would be to pretty much, I heard this saying a long time ago and it stuck with me, where it says fire yourself from every position other than CEO. So once you get your company to the point that you are able to, it's really important to take a step back and start to delegate to other people on your team. And even if you know that you do it so amazing and you think you do it best, you're not the only person that is capable of doing said task. And as CEO, you need to focus on money making or brand building and driving activities, and not, answering an email or filling out a form. So the quicker you can do that, the better.
And mine would just be prioritize. It's like, if you know you don't have a large pot to pull from, then really look at where can my dollars go the furthest. It's like, a lot of times we can get caught up in sometimes the aesthetic of things. I, at one point, was like going to invest all this money in the box that things were shipped in, not the packaging that the product was in, but the box. And I had to step back and say, okay, why? Like, this is not the thing that's going to make me the most money. I had a very good friend of mine. I was getting really caught up in like the website and all these little things and the design. And she was like, the ugliest website in the world makes the most money, and it's Amazon. I said, very good point. So it's like the same concept that you do in retail spaces. Like, every square foot has to make a certain amount of money. Take that same thought to the digital space. Like, every place that you are, marketing or, putting your product, make sure that you're prioritizing those dollars and that if you're going to get the return on it that you need.
No,
Can I add one?
Oh,
sorry,
please. No, go ahead.
I want to add one thing too, and I'm not just saying this because we're Brown Girl Jane and we're centering wholeness and wellness, but I think especially for women entrepreneurs, I think when we dive into these businesses, we often forget about ourselves and prioritizing our health and wellness, and to the detriment of even the business, our family, all of those other relationships. And it took me a long time to get here, but I think prioritizing yourself in the middle of everything, and even if it's not necessarily an hour a day, if it's 5 minutes a day, if it's 2 minutes a day, if it's 20 minutes a day, be intentional about how you prioritize your own wellness and health.
No, I love that. And I actually was listening to a podcast yesterday just about that, because I think we all need to do that, especially during this very trying time. I could ask you amazing women questions all day. This has been really, truly an honor and an amazing experience for me to be in your presence. I just want to thank you all for your trailblazing, your insight, your guidance, being women that so many of our entrepreneurs can look up to. Congratulations on your success. And I want to thank everyone who's listening and a part of the Beauty Self-Wellness Health seminar today. It's fantastic, and I'm just thrilled that you were able to join us. So thank you so much for your time, and we'll look forward to talking with you again soon. And good luck and stay safe.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks,
Ladies, it was so good to see you.
I know. It was an honor to share this space with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, absolutely. Thank you.